I can offer my really corny tribute and try and make it as brief as possible. Peter would have been a little bit older when I first met him. I actually have a master's in computer science, and so I started the MBA program at George Washington in 1984. And I was working at IBM, and between some things that were happening at work and taking Peter for the OB course, it just completely opened my eyes to human behavior and dynamics in a way that I was totally ignorant of before. And so he's had the biggest impact on my career by far, because I then changed my major in my MBA program to organizational behavior. And, at the time, I think I was about 25. And then I switched my whole career over to human behavior thereafter, working for a management consulting firm and so forth. And then 10 years after that, I decided to go get a PhD. And so I went back to the George Washington University, and Peter became my dissertation director. And the really corny part of this tribute is that, I'm a Christian, and sometimes people wonder, well, like, what is heaven going to be like? Can you sit around and, on clouds and eat bonbons all day? Won't that be kind of boring? And so the closest example that I can think of was, as a doctoral student, I met with Peter every week or so, every couple of weeks. And every single one of those conversations, I walked away with a broader horizon, a bigger perspective, something I'd learned. And so, I thought, I could do this for infinity. It's like, if you can just keep having your mind stretched in every single interaction, that would be a good deal. And so that's who Peter was for me. He was that person that just constantly stretched my horizons.
Wow.
I'll say that I actually just completed sort of a tribute article to him. I just found out this morning it's being accepted by Organizational Dynamics. So I had occasion to kind of go through his whole body of work that I could get a hold of. And I would just offer a few comments on his legacy. What did he kind of leave us going forward, if there's time permitted? But I think it was Bill that said this. He at one point laments, trying to get things published in academic journals is such a hassle. You're completely at the mercy of the reviewers and the editor. He said, I really like publishing book chapters where you have a lot more autonomy. So that was a little nugget I picked up along the way. But, I was really kind of inspired by his most recent thinking about management was that we might want to substitute the word encouragement, and he spelled it EN-courage-ment, with the idea that really being a manager is about courage. Now, encouragement in the vernacular has this kind of cheerleading connotation, but that's not what he meant at all. That he would quote people like Deming saying, that drive out fear is an important part of what has to happen, and other people that said, you really need to have guts to be a manager. So he really, I think in his last years, was kind of focusing heavily on this idea of really maybe management is primarily encouragement. So I found that pretty inspiring. I also found where he wrote something about, he's cited as having the seminal paper in 1972 on kind of the high-performing organization, that field. And he wrote at the time, I think it was at the time, maybe later, that he came up with kind of 47 descriptors of this high-performing organization. Yeah. But he didn't want to get any more reductionist about it. He didn't want to study it. He didn't want to. He felt like he would lose what he wanted to continue to learn about the Gestalt if he started to look at the pieces too quickly. And so, I was just struck by that. That is so foreign from the thinking of any current management scholar and researcher. I'll stop there because I can see other people are getting.
Those are excellent points.
But there were several things like that where he's just completely counter to the trajectory of the management field today.
Yeah.
I think these couple sentences both express kind of the profound thinking that Peter often brought, but also the beautiful writing style. So let me read out a couple here. Theory and practice do not integrate. They dance with each other, sometimes lustily, but just as often ploddingly, or with one lording over the other, or warily and with stony indifference. But it also must be said that in a school of administration, management, leadership, or practice, if theory and practice do not dance with each other somehow, the learner will graduate not knowing much about practice, not having gained any increment in concrete skill, nor remembering any of the theories that were intended to be relevant in the future. So I love that metaphor of dancing, sometimes lustily, sometimes ploddingly, and again, I think the writing's beautiful, but the insight is so profound.
That's it.
How if we don't connect theory and practice, the learners walk away with very little. And so I think that's another real legacy I take from his career and his life. I'll say something if no one else jumps in, but another thing that was part of Peter that just is completely lost is that he felt it was important to teach management by talking about Lao Tzu or Heidegger, or he recommended that you read the New Yorker. He recommended that those of us in the field write novels like Dave Fearon did. So this whole idea that we could teach management through the humanities, it's completely lost on any of my colleagues these days. So, when I had him for the OB MBA class, we studied, I think it was Zubin Mehta conducting the Los Angeles Philharmonic, right? Which, none of my colleagues are thinking in those terms at all these days. It's just that it may be lost to history, that whole notion.
Well,